You are now tuned in to the Triple Threat Podcast.
All right, Bills fans, Bills Mafia, thanks for tuning back in to another episode of the Triple Threat Podcast. As always, my name is Ken Triplett, and joined by my astute partner in crime each and every time we do this. It's Jordan Triplett. Jordan, how are you?
I'm good, feeling good, finally. It's been a brief exit from the playoffs, but we're back.
I know. You go from, one long drought into a 1 year drought. For the Buffalo Bills in between playoff appearances. I'm not sure if Bills fans or Bills Mafia, we're used to this, but I got a feeling you better get used to this team and how it's being run and how it's being led. Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane seem to be a match made in heaven. When they hired Sean McDermott, I'll get off into a little bit of a tangent. We're going to obviously talk about the thrilling win Sunday night, the Bills over the Pittsburgh Steelers 17-10. But when the Bills hired Sean McDermott and everything I heard about him and everything I knew about him from his Carolina days as a defensive coordinator and how he carried himself, I said, you know what? If this is the right hire, the Bills may have found their Belichick, minus the cheating. I really think that, this guy's as solid as he comes. And I think the culture change that he wanted to bring about has actually arrived probably a couple years earlier than anticipated, which is great news for Bills fans because Lord knows how long we've suffered with some of the seasons and some of the teams this organization has had. But without further ado, let's get into Sunday night's game. The Bills beating the Pittsburgh Steelers 17-10, and by virtue of that, getting themselves and earning their spot into the 2019-2020 NFL playoffs.
Yeah, first time they've hit 10 wins since 1999. This is their best road record since 1999 as well. 1999. It's been a long time. It's clearly been 20 years since we've seen a team this good coming out of Buffalo, and that game, it was just the most Billsian kind of win. It was just straight ugly. Defense won it out, and they truly won that game. The defense didn't score any points, but they might as well have, the way they were playing out there. They almost did on one Trey White interception, but it's clear what is the focal point of this team. It's clear what's carrying this team into the playoffs, and we're finally getting those turnovers from this great defense rather than a bunch of 3-and-outs who are luckily playing a quarterback that was an undrafted third stringer. So we really had an advantage there that we took every opportunity with. The offense, it is catching up, it's getting there, and it was good enough to win that game and good enough to get us into the playoffs. But like you said before speaking to me, we know who they are. This is the Bills team that has to grind out games defensively, keep it close, and then hopes their offense puts them over the top with a few timely scores.
Well, let's talk about the Bills and how they do operate and how the season has gone so far. I mean, there was nothing about last night's game that surprised anyone. Everyone expected a defensive battle. Everyone expected turnovers with the way these defenses play, the Bills and the Steelers. The Steelers with their pressure on the quarterback and their ability to turn the ball over. And they did turn the ball over on the Bills a couple of times. But the Bills, with 5 interceptions last night, 4 interceptions, last night, were able to get over that hump, and it turned out to be the difference maker. So we're seeing from week to week, especially this past week, that this is who they are. And, to be honest with you, I'm comfortable with that. This team, this organization has a lot of time, if you will, to get better incrementally. And you're going to see that in the development of Josh Allen. You're going to see that in the development of Devin Singletary. You're going to see that in how they bring in new talent each and every spring and summer. But this is who they are right now, which is fine with me, because as we get into December and we get into now January by making the playoffs, last night's game was kind of like a playoff type game, and it was good for this team to have that experience and have that feel by having to earn their way into the playoffs, as opposed to the first time when it was kind of given to them out of a miracle outcome.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, coming into the road, I just want to talk about real quickly how this team has shown up for these primetime games. It's been a long time since they've been on primetime, but we know the old stories when they used to show up on primetime, like that Monday night game against the Cowboys so long ago, and when they put us on Sunday night against the undefeated Patriots. Like, this is a team that just historically recently hasn't looked good in prime time, but we've had two big game showings already. The Thanksgiving game, the most watched game the NFL has had all year, and then this game as well, this primetime game, showing up on the road against a team that is like right on your heels, literally as close as they could be in the standings to you, and trying to take your spot, and just truly enforcing their will on the road and saying, no, we're the better team, we're taking this spot, this is our game. And that's something they really needed for the character of this team.
It's almost as if the Bills relish this spot. You know, they relish having an opportunity to prove themselves in front of the nation and in front of the world, with these primetime games. And upcoming this Saturday is another type of national spotlight game, if you will. It's on a Saturday. It's going to be the only NFL game on at the time while it's playing. And so it's going to be another opportunity against the Patriots, nonetheless, where the Bills can say, hey, we're not quite satisfied with just making the playoffs. We really want a shot at winning the division and getting a first round bye. So they have that going for them in terms of incentive and motivation. I believe them when they say that I think they're young enough and not necessarily naive enough, but hungry enough to, put themselves in that position and actually mean it and actually have that incentive to, go above and beyond what was expected of them this year. So, but having said that, looking back at last night's game, or this Sunday night's game, I should say, with the Steelers, one thing did continue to crop up its ugly head, and that is of the Bills' offensive woes that continue. And I guess it kind of goes hand in hand with this is who they are. They can run the ball at times. It can be spotty. I think that minus a fumble by Devin Singletary when the Bills were driving into the Steelers' territory, that this game could have been a double-digit win by the Bills had that fumble not happened, because they were really finding themselves a groove with running the ball and with the short passing game that Josh Allen was using at the time. But the fumble did happen. But again, offensively, Bills fans are a bit squeamish about how they are struggling on offense. But my question is, why is this such a surprise, if you will? Why is this such an area of angst for Bills fans? They've been this way all year long.
I think the what's the word? The honeymoon is kind of over with our free agent signings, especially Cole Beasley really turned up for his revenge game in Dallas. But ever since, he's just it's like he's lost his powers in some sort of Space Jam plot, and he just can't catch a ball anymore. When he is actually going up for the ball, he can't come down with it, causing a pick like we saw in that Steelers game. I don't know what happened to him at all. He just must have gave his all during that game. And then even the week before against the Ravens, when it came down to John Brown, like, we all love Smoke. He's great. He's awesome. But clearly, we need a number one guy, and that's going to win those end of game, those last possessions, those we needed, those clutch plays, those clutch catches at the end. And I mean, if he can't provide it, we got to find somebody who can.
Well, don't get me wrong. I'm all for, putting points on the scoreboard, and the Bills clearly struggle in this area, so let's talk about the wide receiver core, which has been a bone of contention for many Bills fans. And I have to agree with Chris Collinsworth, and you and I have talked about this in the past, that large part of the problem is that you do have smaller receivers, although speedy and quick, don't provide the largest catch radius for Josh Allen, who severely needs receivers that can cut him some slack, that can help him out when he doesn't throw a pinpoint pass. I think it puts a lot of pressure on Allen to have to, or feel like he has to throw a pinpoint accurate pass just about every time he drops back to pass, because no quarterback does that. Not even Tom Brady. He has receivers and has had receivers in the past whereby, they had large catch radiuses where passes that are off target are have an area of forgiveness to it because the receivers take up space. They're bigger targets, larger leaping radius, larger catch radius. And that's just something right now that Josh Allen has no luxury whatsoever, with maybe the exception of Dawson Knox. But at the same time, Dawson Knox hasn't deprived himself of being a reliable catcher of the football.
Dawson, he's not there yet, and I don't think anyone expects him to be. We all want him to be that type of Gronkowski that Tom Brady had, with his large catch radius and his ability to catch it over the middle in traffic, his ability to fight for the ball. But, I mean, Dawson Knox, he's great. I love him. He'll get there. He's clearly not that guy right now. And again, love Smoke Brown, would love him as a number 2, would love Cole Beasley as strictly a slot. And I'm kind of disappointed that we haven't seen too much of Robert Foster this year. He's had a little bit of an injury problem, but I mean, when he's healthy, where is he besides special teams? Where is he showing up in the playbook? All his plays are seemingly going to Isaiah McKenzie so he can run a bunch of gadgets and a bunch of end arounds and things like that. Where's Foster going deep? We finally saw Josh Allen hit a deep ball last night. But, I mean, if we had Foster there, maybe we'd have more opportunities to stretch the field.
Well, I think one thing the Bills are realizing, and that other NFL teams probably already knew, is that Foster's a one-trick pony. He doesn't run the greatest routes. He's not a complete wide receiver. He's pretty much an inline guy, with his speed and his size can get you some deep balls. And unfortunately, Josh Allen has not been able to connect on many, if not any of those deep balls this year as opposed to the previous year. So he's really limited in terms of what the Bills can offer him. Now, I don't mind John Brown being a number 1 receiver, because you look at the Chiefs, Tyreek Hill, similar size, is a guy who's a number 1 guy in Kansas City. But they also have Travis Kelce, and they also have larger receivers for
Sammy Watkins.
Exactly. So you can't get away with a guy like John Brown being your number 1, which is fine, but you have to have a supporting cast around him to be able to supplement what is needed for this passing attack. And right now, the Bills don't have that. So you can look this upcoming offseason for Brandon Beane, who you and I both think should be a GM candidate of the year person. Through free agency and also through the draft, to bring in someone of size. And so they're going to have to be very careful in terms of whom they choose to target in free agency, how much that person is going to cost, and also through the draft, which is a very deep draft in terms of the wide receiver position, which a lot of Bills fans are pretty excited about.
Honestly, I'm not even looking at any free agent receivers myself. They're going to cost this team too much money, depending on what is available. And then even then, there is, like you said, so much talent at receiver this year, especially compared to last year where we didn't seem to grab any of the big names that are really turning out well. There's a lot of great rookie receivers right now. Terry McLaurin, there's Cortland Sutton in Denver. There's a lot of guys that are just doing amazing. DJ Shark in Jacksonville. So many guys, it's so many people to name, and this draft class is even deeper than that. There's no reason for them to miss out on a guy that can not only be cheap on his rookie deal, but also grow with Josh Allen. You extend your window of competitiveness, that championship window, by getting these young guys who are talented, so they can all have their primes just sort of overlap each other.
Yeah, I think the Bills are going to have to go with the 2-pronged approach, because I'm wary of ignoring wide receiver through the free agency route. I think the Bills are going to have to not necessarily do any bargain basement hunting in regards to receivers in the free agency, but be very prudent like they were with the offensive line. Getting guys that, have experience but still have a lot of tread left on the tire that can bring value to this team. And I think Bean can do that very easily, bringing in an 8 or 9 year veteran, if you will, that can help out this wide receiver core. Because you don't want to go too young. You don't want to just, draft a receiver in the first or second round, and you've got all this youth at that position, because wide receiver, besides quarterback, is the hardest position to learn and be consistent at on the offensive side of the ball. And it may take some time for whoever they draft in the first or second round to give them the immediate dividends that the team needs right away. So it's going to have to be a two-pronged approach in that regard. So Brandon Bean, if you're listening, if you are going to be that GM of the year candidate, you're going to have to earn your keep once again, obviously, as all front office executives need to. And at the same time, what's the priority for Sean McDermott in this football team? I know we're getting way ahead of ourselves. The season is not over yet. We haven't even gotten to the playoffs yet. But we're just kind of future casting in terms of, since we are talking about the offensive woes, what's the biggest issue? And to me and many Bills fans, the biggest issue has been the wide receiver core. The running game has been solid, and many people have been asking, Jordan, where has the ingenuity gone with his offense? We have been playing Robert Foster, who was getting 0 to 1 or 2 targets per game, if that. I don't think he got any last night.
No.
But then you have your third down back who's just collecting dust, doing nothing from week to week.
Yeah, I really can't seem to understand sometimes where the offense goes because it's so inconsistent. I do want to give credit on that last touchdown drive. It was an amazing call with that touchdown pass to Tyler Croft. Beautiful route, beautiful play. Great blocking on the play as well. Just a perfectly timed ball. Everything about that play was amazing. And then you go back to a few plays before that happened where we're running Frank Gore on a bunch of outside stretches like that's his game. He's clearly a between the tackles kind of back, and he's not. He's great right now, but he doesn't have that burst that he needs to go around the edge against NFL defenders anymore. He's strictly a sort of between the tackles kind of guy. And we have Devin Singletary, who we're trying to run up the middle for no reason in those Gore design plays. So a lot of the problem seems to come for me from personnel. I don't think it's the calls themselves that have been bad. It's just, why put Gore on the outside and Singletary in the inside? Why are we trying to run plays that would require us to have a 6'3" receiver out there trying to fight for a ball? Instead, we have Cole Beasley, who's 5'8", running over the middle between the deep safety and the deep linebacker. It's just, the personnel doesn't match up with the calls, and I mean, you got to work with what you work with right now. So Dayball, he has to work around who he has right now instead of trying to prepare Josh for the future throws that he has to make with the future receivers he doesn't have yet. Just play around what we have now, and I think this offense will be far better suited.
I completely agree, and it's a head scratcher sometimes in terms of the play calling. And Brian Dayball, I think he just goes brain dead at certain points in the football game. And, I think he gets his personnel bunches mixed up. And I think last night was a perfect example of, like you said, we're running Singletary inside when he's more of an outside runner, and we're running Gore outside when he's an inside runner. And it just didn't make any sense. And, again, we haven't seen the Bills' third down back. Help me out here.
TJ Yeldon?
TJ Yeldon, exactly, who, hasn't been on the active roster in quite some time. And you look at a team and this is a pet peeve of mine that you and I discuss from time to time, the Bills have to be the worst screen team I've ever seen in my life. It's almost one play every single game, if not two, whereby their screen plays get blown up almost immediately, and Josh Allen has to throw the ball into the turf. I've never seen anything like it. Maybe the personnel getting Yeldon out there is going to help that a bit, but I'm not quite sure what the problem is. But this offense, not just from a schematic standpoint or a personnel standpoint, can definitely use a shot in the arm in terms of, at least giving defenses different looks and keeping them honest in terms of what to expect from this Bills offense from week to week, especially as the playoffs come around. And you want to put your best foot forward in the playoffs because it's the playoffs, and a lot of teams almost come out looking like totally different teams during playoff time because that's when you save your best stuff for the best time of the year.
Josh Allen, at this point in his career, he's overachieving, but he is still a game manager. So allow him to manage the game. We know he's not going to throw for 300 plus yards every single game for the win. We know we're going to have to control the time of possession with our runs and play a lot of down and distance. And it just, the offense, it just needs something besides just the basic vanilla stuff and then trying to mix it in with all these different kind of sort of modern schemes, I guess you would call them. I saw one of the outside runs that Frank Gore had that went for a loss. It looked like he was about to throw a halfback pass because he actually stepped back a little bit, put the ball in his right hand rather than tucking it in his arm. And yeah, like I'm sitting here thinking, like, why are you calling that on like 2nd and 12 on the 27? Why do we need a halfback pass right here? What is that gonna get us besides at best 7 yards? That's not gonna even get us a first down, and at worst a turnover. So it just, like you said, Dayball, he just seems to go brain dead sometimes. He just be consistent with the good plays. I mean, it's obviously easier said than done, but just don't make the dumb mistakes. That's all you have to do.
And that play could have been disastrous for the Bills, had Gore attempted to make that throw because looking downfield, one shot that NBC showed was that whoever they were trying to go to got bracketed and was double teamed. And, that play was DOA from the get-go for the Bills. So, thank God that it didn't fool anyone, number one. And number two, just had a smack of desperation. That play did work on Thanksgiving Day, but those plays only work once. They rarely work
exactly
a second time later in the season. So it's kind of like, dude, come on. I mean, you're supposed to be a professional offensive coordinator. It just makes you look high school Harry-ish, if you will. It just didn't make any sense. It did look like it was contrived, and it's just like, and that's why so many Bills fans are soured on Dayball in terms of his long-term ability to run an effective offense, because quite frankly, he doesn't have the track record. He doesn't have the results to say that he's a viable NFL offensive coordinator at any point in his career. But we're not going to beat a dead horse because. Finally, it's over. The Battle of William and Mary is now in the books between Sean McDermott and Mike Tomlin, and we have a winner. It is Sean McDermott who has won this battle 17-10 for the Buffalo Bills, giving the Bills a playoff berth. And so that brings up the point of, because a lot of people, Jordan, have been talking about Mike Tomlin being the coach of the year because of, being down to his third or fourth quarterback, which is, I agree with that. Ideology. But Sean McDermott, man, and what he's done with this Bills team, and the Bills team, in my opinion, has come out of nowhere, even though Pittsburgh is on its third or fourth quarterback in terms of expectations. So for me, and although I admit I'm extremely biased, being a Bills fan, Sean McDermott's got to be coach of the year this year. What do you think?
I think, first of all, I want to speak about the disrespect that Al Michaels just had for us at the start of the broadcast. Say, yeah, Mike Tomlin's got my votes for coach of the year. He's playing against another candidate.
Not even over yet.
And he just gets smacked. Like, dude, calm down. Let's pump the brakes on this. Chris Collinsworth had to say, I don't know. We'll have to wait until the end of the season trying to save him. But, what'd you say?
No, I was agreeing with you. I was saying exactly. Let's wait and see what happens with this game first. And then there are two more after that. And then we can determine, who's coach of the year. But, no, I completely agree with you. He got way ahead of himself. And, sometimes, broadcasters or journalists get wrapped up in this story about, he's down to his third or fourth quarterback. But he also has a top-ranked defense. I think what McDermott has done this year has been equally impressive. And in this particular instance, McDermott had to go into the guy's backyard, bloody his nose, and get a W for at least locally, for people to recognize that he's a viable Coach of the Year candidate.
On defense, who's Tomlin got? Just a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year. That's all. T.J. Watt. And then on the other side, he's got Bud Dupree, who's still a great rusher. And in that same linebacking core, he's still got Devin Bush. He's got Minkah Fitzpatrick. He's got Joe Hayden. Like, he's got Cameron Hayward. Like, dude, he's got everybody he needs on defense. The only thing he had to worry about was his quarterback. And I mean, he's obviously done great. He's still a Coach of the Year candidate. But like we said, he's played against another Coach of the Year candidate. I'm not going to call that race before that game's over. And even then, with Sean McDermott hitting 10 wins, we talked about this in a previous episode, that to get to this conversation, he needs to hit that 10-win point. And he has done that now, clearly. We've made the playoffs, clinched, and hit that 10-win mark before some thought we would hit it. Because I remember you did think we would come down to that last game against the Jets, as many others did. And even with that, he's hit that point a lot earlier than many people would have thought. And that also puts us in the conversation with that Coach of the Year, because the 49ers, they have 11 or 12 wins now. The
11.
Ravens 11, and then the Ravens have 12 to lead the league. Like, we're only 2 wins off of that. And I mean, they lost to the Ravens last week, obviously, so maybe Harbaugh might get that nod above McDermott, but I definitely wouldn't give it to Tomlin over McDermott at this point.
No, I would not at this point, not especially not after what transpired last night in Pittsburgh. And because of that, the Bills are in the playoffs. And so let's transition, Jordan, into just, again, future casting just a bit. I know there's a big game coming up this Saturday against the New England Patriots. But let's talk about the more favorable wildcard matchup that the Bills are likely to face for their wildcard playoff game. And so the way it breaks down basically is that the Bills are pretty much locked, right now at least, into that 5th seed for the AFC wildcard spot. And which means they'll play the number 4 seed in the AFC, which will really come down to basically 2 teams when the smoke clears. The Ravens are most likely going to be the number 1 seed and get the bye. I think the Patriots will be the 2 seed. And I think that 4 seed will pretty much come down to either the Texans or the Kansas City Chiefs. And between those 2 teams, I got to say all day long, give me the Texans in terms of having to play on the road, the matchups, the Bills' ability to beat that team, the winnability of the game. I think the Texans would be the ideal matchup in terms of what the Bills could face as opposed to the Chiefs. Your thoughts on that?
Like you said, the Texans would be perfect for this team. First of all, on their defense, they don't have J.J. Watt anymore. That's just automatically taking their own defense down a peg, just immediately off the strength of losing a Defensive Player of the Year. On top of that, on the other side of the ball, their offense seems to come and go. And they're inconsistent in the same way the Bills seem to be when it comes to scoring points. Some weeks they look dominant and they can beat the Patriots, and then the next week they lose terribly by like 30, 40 points. They lose to the Broncos like they did terribly a couple weeks ago. And yeah, the Texans are just... They don't show up in huge games outside of that Patriots. That was a great surprise. It looked like it would be a turnaround for the franchise. But what we've seen from the Texans, not only this year, but even in years past, they seem to just not show up for that moment. And I would love for the Bills to just take that away from them. And there is an outside shot that the Tennessee Titans could steal that division. The Texans are right now 9-5. The Titans are 8-6. So it's still possible for the Titans to win that division and somehow get into the 4 seed, which would be even better. But I would take any of those 2 AFC South guys over the Chiefs.
Absolutely. Without a doubt. I think the Texans, you and I agree on that, obviously. It would be the much more favorable matchup as opposed to going into Arrowhead, against Patrick Mahomes and all those weapons. Not that the Bills couldn't play with them or shut them down or make it competitive, but we are asking the question point blank, what's a more favorable matchup? And it's quite clear that the Houston Texans, who don't seem to do anything specifically well, they do a lot of things, kind of like jack of all trade, master of none, if you will. And I think that's something that fits the Bills opponent-wise much more favorably than someone who can explode on you at any time on any given play, and really make a close game into a laugher. So hopefully that is a matchup that the Bills will face if they don't win the division. And I really think that the Bills can very easily go into Houston, like you said, with their history of playoff failure, and play their solid brand of football, and come out with a playoff win. So, looking forward to that possibility. All right, so let's move ahead, Jordan, into our current NFL power rankings. We'll go with top 5 in terms of what we're seeing around the league, and as the season begins to wind down. I'll start with you. Where do you want to start? 5-1 or 1-5?
We can go 1-5.
Okay.
So, to make it easiest, in the AFC, number 1, Baltimore, obviously best team in the league right now, best offense. Defense is still hanging good. The Lamar Jackson MVP. You can't really say enough of them that hasn't already been said ad nauseum. Number 2, you have the Patriots, and there's clearly a tier that the Patriots and the Ravens are on right now. As much as we hate the Patriots, there's clearly a tier that they are just at that no other team in the AFC can reach right now. Number 3, I would put the Chiefs. They've shown inconsistency, but they're doing what the Chiefs do. They always go on this late season run of just having a long winning streak or losing only one game out of their last 10 or so. They always seem to do this. They're getting hot at the right time, and that's what makes them dangerous. But I still would not put them in that upper tier with the Ravens and the Patriots. Number 4, the Texans, like we just talked about, they lead that division. Wow. I'm sorry?
I said, wow, the Texans at 4, really?
I thought we were separated by divisions. Are we not, 1-5?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we're just going through...
Oh, if you mean total NFL, then okay, I would not put...
total NFL.
If you mean total NFL, I'm not putting the Texans as number 4. So 1 and 2 would stay the same, Ravens, Patriots. In that case, my 3 would be the Seattle Seahawks. I really am high on this team because Russell Wilson is playing at an absolute phenomenal level that is just not matched by anyone outside of Lamar Jackson right now. And that defense is getting better and better with the pieces they've just added, like Jadeveon Clowney at the beginning of the year, and they added I believe the safety from the Lions. I can't remember his name right now. I think it's Quandre Diggs or something like that. I can't really remember, but he's been great for the team, and they've been looking really strong, stronger than the 49ers to me, stronger than the Saints to me. And that being said, at number 4, I would have the Saints. They've been spectacular on offense, like we've all been expecting. There's nothing you could say about the offense that already hasn't been said. Again, these are just known quantities in the NFL. A Saints team having a great offense with Drew Brees. On defense, they've still been looking good enough to win games. I'm not completely sold on their playoff viability against a team like a 49ers, like we saw in the game of the year probably earlier this year, actually a couple weeks ago. So I would still put the Saints there in that spot there to round out that top 5. So or rather top 4, and then number 5. At number 5, I would throw the 49ers. The 49ers did beat them, but I just can't see Jimmy G doing it again in the playoffs in such a tough game, and he's getting a lot of flack because he just faces general criticism, and he still comes out and wins games. But again, I'm not seeing the superstar viability that everyone seems to sort of see with Jimmy G out there.
Right. I think it's a great list, and I think our lists are pretty similar. I'm going to go actually 5-1. So I'm going to start with my number 5, and I'm going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs at 5. They're steady, they're consistent. They know who they are. They don't make any bones or surprises about that. I think you can expect to see them in another AFC championship game to compete for that AFC berth in the Super Bowl. And, the Chiefs are who they are. And Again, just Andy Reid just has a well-oiled machine in Kansas City. Number 4, I'm going to go with the Patriots. Until someone knocks them down off that pedestal, I'm still going to give them the proper respect in terms of their output that they've been doing each and every year during the playoffs. So they're going to be number 4. Number 3, I'm going to stick with the 49ers, who, admittedly, they floundered lately. They don't look as solid or strong as they have earlier in the year, but I still think the 49ers are a team to be reckoned with. Number 2, I'm going to go with the Seahawks. I really like that team as well. I like Russell Wilson's ability to create plays off schedule. And, right now, I still think that it's a 2-horse race between he and Lamar Jackson for an MVP. So I really like the Seahawks at that number 2 spot. And number 1, the Ravens. Again, until someone begins to show the world that, they can compete with the Ravens in all phases of the game. The Ravens right now are probably the team to beat for the whole enchilada, so to speak. All right, so let's transition to the Bills' next opponent, Jordan, the New England Patriots. Again, it's a Saturday nationally televised game, if you will. A special Saturday edition for the Bills. And it's again, if the Bills are serious, it's another playoff type atmosphere, another experience that this team has yet to face, which is really exciting for not only the Bills, but the fan base in terms of what this team can do and what this team can show and what they can prove to people.
The Patriots game, I'm sick of them putting us at the end of the year. You've talked about this as well. We always play in Foxborough at the end of the year, and like you have said before, either Tom Brady's playing because they locked things, or rather they haven't locked their spot up yet, or he's not because they have. But this is the first time in a while where things truly matter in this game at the end of the year. The division's on the line. I mean, the Bills haven't had a crack at this in a very, very long time, and they're going to be pumped up for this. And I haven't seen too much of this team riding too high off of a win this year. After the Cowboys game, they did play the Ravens, and I mean they're the toughest team in football, but they were hanging right in there with them for the most part of that game. So I don't see them getting too wild about things, and I know this is really big on Josh Allen and his own progression, because after the first Patriots game where he imploded with all those interceptions, he said after that game things started to really slow down for him, and he started to be more and more confident, and we've seen evidence of this. We've seen him dominate on Thanksgiving in that not prime time spot, but that nationally televised spot, and last night as well, coming in first throw of the game, heat-seeking missile between 2 defenders to John Brown, I believe it was, and then even towards the end on that last touchdown to Croft, a lot of pressure coming at him, but he stayed strong in the pocket, confident, delivered a great ball. He's getting better and better, and we've seen this, and I know he's just raring to go for this Patriots game to show how really far he has come and that he can beat a team like this. And also the defense, they knew they let a chance slip away last time because they played outstanding against the Patriots offense, and I think they can do even more damage this time around.
Well, I really like your optimism, Jordan, and I wish I could share more of it. I think this is a really dangerous game for the Buffalo Bills. As they enter into it. Number 1, they're coming off a short week, or will be coming off a short week. It's another road game, even though the Bills are, and I can't believe it, they're 6-1 on the road, which is outstanding in the NFL. But I think it's a tall order for the Bills to come into this game onto a short week. Playing for, and the Patriots are obviously have a lot of incentive, because if they win the division. So it's a championship game for them right off the bat, and the Bills are just hoping to win the division. So this game, if the Bills aren't careful, could really kind of slip away from them. And I think that's the inherent danger in playing these games against the Patriots at the end of the year. They have something to play for. They're in the middle of another scandal, so They want to make another statement game against a quality opponent. And so you could almost kind of see the storylines and the stage being set for a bit of a letdown for Bills Mafia and this organization. So just a word of caution. It's just going to be a tall order for the Bills to come up with yet another type of performance that they did on Thanksgiving and again Sunday night against the Steelers. So, but having said that, I think you're going to see the Patriots want to establish their run game, which is what they like to do around this time, during this type of game and the time of year. They like to establish their running game to get set for the playoffs. The Bills have done much better against the run over the last 2 to 3 weeks. So it's going to be a situation where it could be a strength against strength. And if the Bills aren't ready, it could be a long day for the Bills. So, again, just want to caution you Bills fans that even though everyone's excited about this, let's be careful what we wish for. And let's go into this game with a level head and measured expectations in terms of what this team can do at this point in time.
That all being said, I see this game as I don't see it as a win. I see them as showing what do they call it, a Pyrrhic victory, in the sense that they look competitive against this team. They clearly look like they're going to take the torch from this team as the kings of this division in the future. But I'd see a score of maybe 20-14 where the Bills just turn it over, and that's where the Patriots get their touchdowns from capitalizing off of those turnovers.
Right. Well, again, I said the Bills are 6-1 on the road this year, and unfortunately, Bills fans, I think it's going to be 6-2. I do not expect a win this week, and so I'm going to go Patriots 27, Buffalo 17, 27-17. I think the defense looks human for a change, and I think probably it's going to be a close game, but I think the Patriots pull away with the last, not last second or last minute touchdown, but mid to late fourth quarter touchdown to give the Patriots the cushion that they need to get the win over the Bills and win their billionth AFC East title until this Bills team is ready to take it back from the Patriots. And I think that can happen as early as next year.
Yeah.
But I think that I'm glad that this game is happening, though. I'm really glad that this young team and Josh Allen specifically can't get this experience under his belt right away.
Yeah, they're putting this team on the map immediately, and I'm glad they're relishing the moment, like you said, to have those primetime games. Because again, we haven't seen a Bills team on primetime this much in so very long, and it's all just sort of happening so fast. But I mean, so far they've answered the bell. Let's hope they can answer it this time. But again, it's not a complete disaster if they don't this time.
Absolutely. Well, Bills fans, I hope that you get used to it, because I have a feeling they're going to be on primetime a lot next year, just based off their body of work this year and what can be expected as this team continues to grow and build their roster and build their identity and their culture. So there you have it, another episode of Triple Threat Podcast. Ken Triplett along with Jordan Triplett. We thank you guys once again for tuning in and spending these last 45 minutes with us. Hopefully next week when we come back on the air, we'll be talking about a surprise Bills victory and the possibility of winning their first AFC East title since, I believe, 1995 would be the last time the Bills have won the AFC East. All right. Thanks, guys, again. Triple Threat Podcast. We'll see you next time.